The knock came at 2 a.m., sharp and unrelenting, like a hammer striking the quiet of my life. I stumbled out of bed, heart racing, the floorboards cold against my bare feet in my small Oregon home. Who the hell knocks like that in a town where the biggest crime is a stolen bicycle? I opened the door to find him, Officer Daniel Harper, badge glinting under the porch light, his broad shoulders filling the frame. His eyes, a piercing blue, scanned me with a mix of authority and something softer, something I couldn't place. "Routine check," he said, voice low and steady. But the way he lingered on my name, Alex Rivera, felt anything but routine. "I'm sorry." "What?" I asked, rubbing sleep from my eyes, my paint-splattered t-shirt clinging to my skin. The town of Willow Creek wasn't exactly a hotbed of trouble, and I was just a guy who painted landscapes and kept to himself. Daniel stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, his boots heavy on my creaky floor. "Got a report of suspicious activity in the area," he said, but his gaze wasn't on the room, it was on me, like he was searching for something beyond a crime. The air felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. I led him to the kitchen, my pulse hammering as I fumbled with the coffee pot. "Coffee," I offered, desperate to fill the silence. He nodded, leaning against the counter, his presence overwhelming in my tiny space. I caught the faintest smile as he watched me pour, his fingers brushing mine when I handed him the mug. It was a fleeting touch, but it burned through me, waking something I'd buried years ago. Willow Creek wasn't the kind of place where you could be openly yourself. Not when you were like me. I'd grown up here, learned to hide who I was behind easels and quiet nods at church potlucks. My parents, devout and unyielding, had made it clear love was for normal people, not for someone like me. So I painted. I stayed quiet, and I let the world pass me by. Until tonight, when Daniel's presence seemed to crack open a door I'd nailed shut. "You don't seem like the troublemaking type, Alex," he said, sipping the coffee, his eyes never leaving mine. But I had to check. His tone was teasing, but there was weight behind it, like he was testing the waters. I laughed nervously, my hands shaking as I set my mug down. "I'm just a painter," I said, "unless you count bad still lives as a crime." He chuckled, a low, warm sound that made my chest tighten. "Show me," he said, nodding toward the canvas in the corner, half covered with a cloth. I hesitated. My art was personal, raw, a glimpse into the parts of me I didn't share. But something in his voice, in the way he looked at me, made me pull the cloth away. It was a painting of the creek at dawn, all soft pinks and golds, the water reflecting a world that felt out of reach. Daniel stepped closer, his arm brushing mine, and for a moment, we stood in silence, the painting holding us together. "This is beautiful," he murmured, and I felt the words settle deep, like they weren't just about the art. Then his radio crackled, shattering the moment. "Harper, you done at the Rivera place?" A gruff voice demanded. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he didn't move away. "Yeah, all clear," he replied, his eyes still on me. He set the mug down, his fingers lingering on the counter. "I'll be back," he said, and it sounded like a promise. As the door closed behind him, I sank into a chair, my heart pounding. I didn't know what had just happened, but I knew it wasn't just a routine check. Something had shifted, like a fault line moving beneath my feet, and there was no going back. The next morning, I couldn't shake the memory of Daniel's eyes, the way they'd held mine like he saw more than I wanted him to. I tried to paint, but my brush faltered, the colors bleeding into something chaotic. By noon, I was restless, pacing my small house, replaying every word, every glance. Was I imagining it? The spark, the tension, was it all in my head? Willow Creek was a town of whispers, and I'd learned to keep my head down. But as I walked to the general store for supplies, I felt eyes on me. Mrs. Callahan, the town gossip, gave me a knowing look from her porch. Saw that cop car at your place last night, she called, her voice dripping with curiosity. Everything okay, Alex? Fine, I muttered, hurrying past. But her words gnawed at me. In a town like this, a late-night visit from a cop wasn't just news, it was ammunition. I bought my paint thinner and headed home, my thoughts spiraling. What did Daniel want? Why had he lingered? That evening, I was sketching by the window when headlights swept across my lawn. My heart leapt as I recognized the patrol car. Daniel stepped out, this time in plain clothes, a flannel shirt, and jeans that made him look less like a cop and more like someone I could know. He knocked, softer this time, and when I opened the door, he held up a paper bag. Thought you might like some company, he said, a shy smile tugging at his lips. I let him in, my nerves buzzing. He set the bag on the counter, pulling out a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. I'm off duty, he said, as if that explained everything. We sat at my rickety kitchen table, the wine loosening the tension between us. He told me about his life growing up in Portland, joining the force to make a difference, moving to Willow Creek for a quieter life. But there was a shadow in his voice, a hint of something unspoken. You ever feel like you're hiding? I asked, the wine making me bold. His eyes darkened, and for a moment, I thought I'd crossed a line. Then he nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. All the time. We talked until the bottle was empty, the hours slipping away. He told me about the pressure of being the perfect officer, the expectations of a small town that didn't know the real him. I told him about my art, my parents' disapproval, the loneliness of keeping my truth locked away. With every word, the space between us shrank, until our knees brushed under the table, and neither of us pulled away. When he stood to leave, the air felt heavy with what we hadn't said. At the door, he turned, his hand resting on the frame. Alex, he said, his voice rough. I don't know what this is, but I want to find out. Before I could respond, he leaned in, his lips brushing Minea tentative. Electric kiss that stole my breath. Then he was gone, leaving me standing in the doorway, my world upended. I didn't sleep that night. My mind raced with possibilities, with fear, with hope. Willow Creek wasn't ready for this, and neither was I. But Daniel had cracked open something inside me, and I couldn't close it again. The days after Daniel's kiss were a blur of color and chaos. Like a canvas I couldn't control, I painted furiously, each stroke a release of the storm inside me, hope tangled with dread, desire warring with caution. Willow Creek's quiet streets felt like a minefield now, every glance from a neighbor a potential threat. Daniel came by again 2 nights later, this time with takeout from the diner. We ate in the kitchen, the same table where we'd shared wine. But now the air crackled with something deeper. I couldn't stop thinking about you, he admitted, his voice low, his fork pausing midair. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. Me neither, I said, and the words felt like a confession. We didn't kiss again that night, but we really talked. He told me about his ex, a guy from Portland he'd loved in secret, a relationship that crumbled under the weight of fear and distance. I told him about the boy I'd liked in high school, the one I'd never dared speak to, the one whose name still stung. With every story, we peeled back layers, exposing the parts of ourselves we'd hidden from the world. But Willow Creek wasn't Portland. Here, secrets had a way of unraveling. By the end of the week, whispers had spread. Mrs. Callahan's knowing looks turned into pointed questions at the post office. That Officer Harper's been at your place a lot, she said, her eyes narrowing. What's he checking on so often? I mumbled something about home security and fled, my stomach churning. Daniel noticed the change too. One evening, as we sat on my porch, he took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. "People are talking," he said quietly. "I heard it at the station today." My chest tightened. "What did they say?" He hesitated, then met my eyes. "They think I'm spending too much time here. They're suspicious." I pulled my hand away, fear creeping in. "What does that mean for you?" "For us." He didn't answer right away, and the silence was deafening. Finally, he said, "I don't know, Alex, but I'm not walking away." His words should have reassured me, but they didn't. I knew what this town could do. I'd seen it with my cousin Maria, who'd been shunned for less. My parents had called her a sinner, their voices cold as they cut her out of their lives. I couldn't face that, not from them, not from this town. But Daniel's hand found mine again, and for a moment, I let myself believe we could be stronger than the whispers. The next day, I found a note slipped under my door, unsigned but written in sharp, angry scrawl, "Keep your kind out of our town." My blood ran cold. I showed it to Daniel when he came over that night, and his face darkened. "This is my fault," he said, crumpling the paper. "I should have been more careful." "No," I snapped, surprising myself. "This is their fault, not ours." But the words felt hollow. I was scared not just for me, but for him. Daniel was a cop, a public figure. If this got out, it could ruin him. He pulled me into his arms, his embrace fierce and protective. "We'll figure this out," he whispered. "Together." I wanted to believe him, but the note burned in my mind, a warning of what was coming. The tension escalated the next morning when I got a call from my mother. Her voice was clipped, formal, the way it got when she was holding back anger. "Alex, people are saying things about you and that officer. Tell me they're wrong." I froze, my throat tight. "It's nothing, Mom." I lied, but her silence told me she didn't believe me. "You know what this town thinks of that," she said, the word dripping with disdain. "Don't bring shame on us." I hung up, my hand shaking. Daniel was at the station, and I felt alone, exposed. I tried to paint, but the colors turned dark, muddy, reflecting the fear clawing at me. When Daniel came over that night, I told him about the call. He listened, his jaw tight, then pulled me close. "I'm not ashamed of you," he said, his voice fierce. "And I won't let them make you feel like you should be." His words lit something in me, a spark of defiance, a refusal to hide. But that spark flickered when I saw the patrol car parked across the street the next day. Not Daniel's, but another officer's, watching my house. I knew then that we were running out of time. The patrol car became a fixture outside my house, a silent threat that followed me like a shadow. I stopped going to the general store, ordering supplies online to avoid the stares. Daniel came over less often, not because he wanted to, but because he was trying to protect me. "They're watching me too," he admitted one night, his voice strained. "My sergeant asked why I'm spending so much time in this part of town." I felt the walls closing in. "What did you tell him?" I asked, my voice barely steady. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I said I was keeping an eye on things. But Alex, I don't know how long I can keep this up." His words hit like a punch. I wanted to scream, to beg him not to give up, but I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. Being a cop in Willow Creek meant being a symbol, and symbols didn't get to love who they wanted. I reached for his hand, my fingers trembling. "Do you regret this?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. He pulled me into his arms, his grip fierce. "Never," he said, his lips brushing my forehead. You're worth it. Alex, you're worth everything. But even as he held me, I felt the weight of the world outside my door, pressing down on us. The breaking point came a week later. I was at the creek, sketching, trying to find some peace, when two men approached locals I recognized from church. Their faces hard. You're causing trouble, Rivera, one of them said, his voice low and menacing. That cop's got no business with you. I stood, my sketchbook falling to the ground, my heart pounding. Leave me alone, I said, but they stepped closer, their eyes cold. I don't know how Daniel knew to come. Maybe he'd been patrolling nearby. Maybe it was fate. But suddenly he was there, his patrol car screeching to a stop. He stepped between me and the men, his voice calm but deadly. Back off, he said, his hand on his holster. They hesitated, then retreated, muttering slurs under their breath. Daniel drove me home, his hands white-knuckled on the wheel. In my kitchen, he paced, his anger palpable. I can't keep doing this, he said, his voice breaking. I can't keep pretending I'm just your friend. Alex, I love you. The words hung in the air, raw and undeniable. I froze, my heart soaring and breaking at once. I love you too, I whispered, and the truth of it felt like freedom and a cage all at once. We kissed, desperate and hungry, like we could hold back the world with our lips. But the world wouldn't wait. The next day, Daniel was called into the station. When he came to my house that night, his face was ashen. They're investigating me, he said. Someone filed a complaint. They're saying I'm unfit for duty. I felt sick. Because of me. He shook his head, but I saw the truth in his eyes. Because of us, he said. But I don't care. I'm not letting them take this away. He pulled me close, and for the first time, I let myself believe we could fight this. But deep down, I knew the cost would be high. The town's hostility grew bolder. My mailbox was vandalized. Slurs spray-painted across it. My parents stopped calling, their silence louder than words. Daniel's shifts were cut, his colleagues icing him out. We were becoming pariahs. And yet, in my kitchen, we found solace. We cooked together, laughed, kissed, built a world where we could be us. But it was a fragile world, and I knew it couldn't last. The final blow came on a rainy Tuesday, the kind of day that felt like the world was weeping. Daniel was suspended, pending a hearing. He showed up at my door, soaked and defeated, but his eyes still burned with determination. I'm done hiding, he said, stepping inside. I'm telling them the truth. About us. I grabbed his arm, panic rising. Daniel, they'll destroy you. Your career. Your life. He cut me off, his hands cupping my face. You are my life, he said, and the words broke something in me. I kissed him, tears mixing with rain on his skin. And for a moment, we were untouchable. But the hearing was a public spectacle. The town hall was packed, faces I'd known my whole life staring at us with judgment. Daniel stood tall, his voice steady as he told the truth. He loved me, and he wouldn't apologize for it. I sat in the back, my heart in my throat, as whispers turned to shouts. Some called him a disgrace. Others stayed silent, their eyes averted. When it was my turn to speak, my legs shook. But I thought of Daniel, of the note he'd left on my counter weeks ago. You're enough. I stood, my voice trembling but clear. I love him, I said, and I'm done letting this town tell me who I can be. The room fell silent, the weight of my words sinking in. For the first time, I felt free. The board didn't fire Daniel, but they didn't reinstate him either. They gave him a choice: transfer to another town or resign. We knew what it meant: leave or lose everything. That night, In my kitchen, we made our decision. We'd leave Willow Creek. Start over somewhere new. Somewhere we could be ourselves. Packing was bittersweet. I took my paintings, the ones Daniel loved, and he took the coffee mug from our first night. As we drove out of town, the creek fading in the rear view, I felt a pang of loss, but also hope. We weren't running away. We were running towards some thinga life where love didn't have to hide. Months later, in a small apartment in Seattle, I hung my latest paintinga portrait of Daniel, his eyes bright with the courage that had changed us both. He wrapped his arms around me, his breath warm against my neck. Worth it, he whispered, and I knew he was right. Willow Creek had tried to break us, but in that kitchen, where a routine check became a lifeline, we'd found something stronger. Love wasn't just a feeling, it was a fight, a choice, a promise, and we'd keep choosing it. Every day, no matter what.